I was halfway through a half-frozen protein bar, and a diplomatic breakdown when Ilari ducked under a low plasma conduit and said, "Your species' obsession with processed sugar will either doom you or make you gods. I'm unsure which." Her voice always had that melodic cadence, like a cello trying sarcasm for the first time. I glanced up from the datapad projecting a not-so-veiled death threat from the Thascree trade delegation and replied, "We're betting on both. Diabetes-powered divinity." She raised a long, elegant eyebrow. Her ears, those long, graceful arches that twitched when she was amused or annoyed, barely missed the conduit. "You jest as the negotiations collapse." That's how humans cope with stress. Jokes, carbs, and pretending nothing is on fire. Something is on fire, in Cargo Bay 3. I sighed, shoved the protein bar in my mouth, and muttered around it, "Of course it is." The Valkyrie Drift wasn't exactly a top-tier diplomatic vessel. More like someone had duct-taped a war-era cruiser to a research lab and hoped the galaxy wouldn't notice. I was Lieutenant Jonah Rusk, liaison officer, glorified coffee fetcher, and occasional explosion survivor. Ilari, by contrast, was the Ilarian Federation's top xenolinguist, graceful, lethal, unshakable, and apparently cursed with my constant presence. We made our way toward the negotiation chamber, stepping over a small fire suppression drone that had given up on life. The corridor flickered with failing power relays, casting everything in a strobe-lit techno-nightmare. Ilari moved through it like she was born in chaos. I tripped over my own foot and tried to make it look intentional. "This mission was supposed to be simple," I grumbled. "There is no such thing," she said. "Only smaller disasters waiting to grow teeth." The Thascree were waiting when we arrived. 7-foot insectoids with compound eyes and a deep mistrust of vowels. They hissed, clicked, and made aggressive use of mandible gestures. Ilari translated while I tried to look like someone who hadn't just inhaled 3,000 milligrams of sugar and anxiety. "Ambassador Creel is offended that your crew did not greet them with the ceremonial spore mist," she said evenly. "We ran out. Someone drank it." "You drank it." It said mildly hallucinogenic. I was curious. Ilari tilted her head. "And turns out it was not lying." Creel hissed again. His secondary eyes flared blue. Ilari sighed and whispered something in the glottal chaos that passed for Thascree diplomacy. Creel's antennae drooped, apparently soothed. "Nicely done," I murmured. "I told him your species considers mandible flaring a sign of reproductive interest." I choked. "You what?" "Relax," he's flattered. The negotiations trudged forward. Trade routes, mineral rights, accusations of espionage. At some point, Ilari passed me a datapad under the table with a doodle of a stick figure being eaten by a giant bug, labeled me if they ask about the missing plasma barrels again. I laughed too loudly and Creel's translator chirped in alarm. I waved it off. Hours passed. Tensions mounted. No one died, though I suspect someone tried. We finally got a provisional agreement, subject to review by 6 separate councils, 2 of which were at war with each other. A win by Valkyrie standards. Afterward, Ilari and I found ourselves in the mess hall, surrounded by humming equipment and half-functioning lighting. I slumped in a chair, kicked my boots off, and said, "Do you think anyone notices we're just making this up as we go?" "Yes," she said, "but they are too afraid to admit it." There was a quiet between us then, the kind that felt heavier than silence should be. I looked at her, really looked. She had that same unreadable calm, the kind that made you think she was either meditating or planning the destruction of a minor moon. "Hey," I said. She turned her head. "Will you marry me?" I meant it as a joke, an escape valve. A way to crack the pressure before it boiled. Ilari, my ever-unflappable companion, my partner in bureaucratic purgatory, gave me a long, searching look. "Finally," she said. I blinked. "Wait, what?" Her expression didn't change. "I was beginning to think you would never ask." There was a long, stunned pause in my brain, the kind that feels like getting smacked with a frozen trout. My mouth opened, closed. My internal monologue burst into flames. You know I was joking, right? Her eyes gleamed. Were you? Yes, no, kind of, I mean. She leaned closer, elbows on the table, chin resting in her hands. In Alarian culture, intent is often more important than form. Humor often hides truths. Was yours hiding something? I scrambled to think of a response that wasn't screaming. You can't just say yes to a fake proposal. I did. This is exactly how my cousin got married at a casino. I find your distress adorable, she said, smiling faintly. But do not worry, Jonah Rusk, I am patient. You will catch up eventually. I sat there stunned, watching her pick up her tea like nothing happened. Somewhere in the distance, an alarm went off. Something was definitely on fire again. I didn't move. I was too busy trying to figure out if I'd just gotten engaged or accidentally initiated first contact marriage diplomacy with an alien culture that took sarcasm as sacred oath. Just so I'm clear, I said slowly, there's not like a binding contract, right? She tapped her wrist console. I've already submitted the forms to Fleet Command. We should get a reply in a few days. You're joking. She smiled, long ears twitching. Are you? I stared at her. I was not. And that was somehow the scariest part. The next morning began with a siren, a smoke alarm, and someone yelling about a mildly unstable graviton bubble in the shower. I rolled off my bunk, landed hard, and stared up at the ceiling, wondering if this was married life now. Technically, I wasn't married. Probably. Maybe. It depended on whether Elari was joking, how serious her people took sarcasm, and whether the fleet recognized spontaneous proposals as binding diplomatic engagements. So yes, everything was fine. Except it was. My personal console blinked red with unread messages. Half were from command. One was from a Thascri representative demanding clarification on whether my recent union with the long-eared one constituted a shift in power dynamics. Another was from the Valkyrie Drift's AI psychologist bot, requesting a mutual feelings verification session at 900 hours. I hit snooze on the whole thing, pulled on a uniform, and stumbled into the corridor just in time to get nearly flattened by a runaway maintenance drone. It beeped apologetically before vanishing into the ventilation system with a small poof of smoke. I considered following it. I found Elari in the observation chamber, watching the swirl of space outside with a look of deep serenity. She had a cup of steaming dark liquid in one hand and a tactical report hovering beside her head. I approached cautiously, like one does when dealing with potentially bonded extraterrestrial linguists. You didn't really send forms to Fleet Command, did you? She sipped, yes. I groaned. You know they'll take it seriously. They always take it seriously. I once accidentally requested a flamethrower on a supply requisition because I misspelled framework. I got 3. They were useful. They set the medbay on fire. You overreacted. It was only a small fire contained within one room. And that room was where the medics were. She finally looked at me, her gaze calm. You're avoiding the question. I'm not avoiding anything, I said, clearly avoiding everything. I'm just navigating. To where? Away from being married by accident. She tilted her head. Then why did you say it? I hesitated. Because it was funny. Was it? It would have been funny if you hadn't accepted. Then you did not expect me to reciprocate. No, I mean yes, I rubbed my temples. Look where I come from, saying, will you marry me in the middle of a diplomatic disaster is not normal courtship. On Alaris, she said quietly, it is not the form of the proposal that matters. It is the courage to speak it aloud, even in jest, especially in jest. I blinked, you're serious. I am always serious about marriage, and fusion technology, and breakfast. I paused, wait, fusion technology. She gestured at the report. We're being rerouted to Kedra. There's been an incident at one of the orbital mining colonies. Plasma siphoning, sabotage, possible hostages. Hostages? I thought this was supposed to be a resource inspection mission. It was, then humans arrived. I resent that. You should, you're late, briefing in 15. I watched her walk off, long ears swaying with each step. She paused at the door and added, "Also, I have already informed the Kedron prefect that we are bonded. It has diplomatic advantages. I haven't even agreed to this bonding." She smiled. "Then it is fortunate that consent is part of the upcoming dialogue." 15 minutes later, I was elbow-deep in tactical schematics, and trying not to think about how many alien cultures now considered me legally spoken for. The Kedron mining colony was orbiting a gas giant, its systems half-functioning and its security team MIA. We were to assess, investigate, and avoid getting shot. Ideally. The shuttle ride down was uneventful, apart from a brief moment when the left stabilizer refused to stabilize, and the onboard AI attempted to sing an apology ballad in binary. Ilari piloted with her usual calm, correcting thruster vectors like she was buttering toast. I gripped the armrest like it owed me money. "We'll be landing on Deck B, near the central control spine," she said. "Anything we should know?" The last message from the colony's commander was, and I quote, "They're inside the walls." Then it cut to static. That's never good. Depends what they meant. It could be metaphorical. Or there could be things inside the walls. I find both possibilities equally fascinating. The landing was smooth, which only increased my suspicion. We disembarked into dim corridors lit by flickering lights and the occasional spark from damaged wiring. The air was breathable but smelled like regret and burnt coolant. We moved slowly, weapons holstered, sensors active. No sign of hostiles. No bodies either, just silence. And then from behind a sealed bulkhead, a quiet voice. "Don't open that door." I froze. "Ilari." She pointed to the control panel. Thermal readings, 24 life forms clustered, unmoving, possibly restrained. I pressed the intercom. "This is Lieutenant Jonah Rusk, Terran Fleet. Identify yourself." "Engineer Barlow, don't open it, not unless you want to get hugged. They're friendly now, too friendly." Ilari quirked a brow. "Hugged." Barlow's voice was shaky. "They're covered in fuzz, orange fuzz. It makes you want to hug back. I haven't let go of Jenkins in 12 hours. I turned to Ilari. "What the hell is he talking about?" She scanned the logs. Experimental emotional regulation spores, designed to increase miner morale. "It appears someone breached containment." "Let me guess," I said, "by accident." "Sabotage, actually. Probably to cause chaos. It worked." I sighed. "So, our mission now is to rescue a bunch of aggressively affectionate miners infected with cuddle spores." "Correct. And you're still calling this a good bonding opportunity." She smiled faintly. "You will look very brave in the reports. I will look like a man attacked by space teddy bears." Ilari drew her stun weapon and adjusted the settings. "Then let us proceed with dignity, and perhaps gloves." We entered the chamber carefully. The spores were visible now, drifting orange clouds of barely luminescent fluff. The miners were wrapped in gentle embrace, eyes glassy, smiling like they'd found inner peace in a scented candle ad. One turned toward us, arms wide. "No," I said quickly. "Absolutely not." He kept walking. Ilari shot him. He crumpled, unconscious but still smiling. "Effective," I said. "Temporary." We set to work, neutralizing targets and deploying filtration units. It took hours. At one point, I tripped over a cable and was briefly hugged by a particularly enthusiastic technician named Marla. Ilari stunned her mid-hug. I blacked out for a minute. When I woke, she was holding my hand. "You're not infected," she said, looking mildly disappointed. I groaned. "Can't believe I almost got married again." "You say that like it's a problem." "Because it is." She leaned down and kissed my forehead, then stopped proposing. "I did. That one tried to absorb me." "You're very absorbable." "I'm filing a complaint." "To whom?" I hesitated. "The only person who might understand." "Me." "Unfortunately." She smiled. I decided quietly that I might actually like the way she smiled, just not the paperwork that came with it. The jungle moon was not listed on any official chart, which usually meant one of three things. It was under quarantine. It had been accidentally deleted by a bored cartographer AI, or someone had deliberately left it off the record for reasons involving teeth and screaming. Judging by the wreckage currently smoldering behind us, I was betting on option 3. I'd like to lodge a formal complaint against the concept of gravity, I muttered, brushing dirt and something suspiciously bioluminescent off my uniform. Ilari, standing upright as if crash landing was just her morning stretch routine, tapped her console. Complaint noted. Gravity sends its regards. The shuttle was toast. A melting, sparking pile of once advanced technology now being nibbled on by a creature shaped like a toaster oven with legs. I stared at it. It stared back. I think it just winked at me. It has no eyes. Then what did it use? Interpretation is dangerous on moons like this, she said, already scanning the terrain. We need shelter and elevation. Of course, we headed toward a ridge dotted with massive, spiral trees that emitted a low hum. I tried not to think about what frequency it was, and whether it was saying come closer or trespassers will be composted. Ilari stopped at a clearing, knelt, and tapped the ground. The soil responded literally by folding open like a flower and revealing a cache of ancient technology. Hidden relay, she said. Ilarian design but old. Possibly pre-expansion era. I looked down. Why is that on a moon with bitey toasters? Good question. Do I get a good answer? Not yet. We salvaged a small field generator. 2 rations that were either compressed nutrition or artistic insults to the concept of food, and a flare beacon so old it required a physical match to light. Ilari ignited it with a flick of her fingers, looking mildly amused by my startled jump. Fire primitive, she said in a mock-serious tone. Fire hot. Jonah afraid, I grunted. Now can we please build something before the local wildlife tries to mate with me again? Our shelter was a rough circle of heat stones, a thermal tarp, and a perimeter field keyed to emit a low-frequency pulse that discouraged most curious fauna. Except for the squirrel thing that kept trying to steal my boot, we stared at each other for a while. I offered it half a ration. It offered me what I sincerely hope wasn't a mating dance. I politely declined. Night fell. The stars overhead were too close and the atmosphere too thin. It felt like being inside a snow globe full of alien dreams. I sat beside the field generator, arms around my knees, and tried not to think about how quiet everything was. You're thinking too loudly, Ilari said without looking up. Impossible, I barely think at all. Still too loud. Sorry. She handed me a steaming cup of something. It smelled like citrus and faint menace. What is it? Come. I sipped. It was surprisingly good. Until the aftertaste, which made my toes curl. You ever consider warning someone before you serve them warm citrus poison? She leaned back, arms folded behind her head, and looked at the sky. On Alaris, we drink this when we've spoken truths that need to rest. Is that what that was earlier, when you told the Kedron prefect we were bonded? Yes. You know you've complicated my entire career, right? Yes. And? Your career was already complicated. I am just accelerating its plotline. I stared at her. You didn't deny it's a plotline. Everything is a story, even this moon, especially this moon. I finished the drink and set the cup down. So this bonding thing, you're serious? I am, but I don't know what it means. Then ask, what does it mean? She looked at me for a long moment. It means I trust you, enough to share danger, enough to make decisions that bind. Enough to know you will not run unless I ask you to. That sounds terrifying. It is. I leaned back beside her, eyes on the stars. You're strange. You're stranger. You proposed to me. You proposed to me. I was joking. I was. We lay there in silence for a while. Then, somewhere beyond the trees, something screamed. Not a predator's scream, something mechanical, layered like a computer remembering pain. We both sat up. That wasn't local wildlife, I said. No, she agreed, already scanning. It came from the relay network. There's more beneath the surface. You think someone else is here. I think someone was. The scream came again. This time it was louder and answered by another sound closer. Rhythmic, heavy, I stood. Tell me that's not footsteps. It's not. Good. It's a tracked machine, possibly autonomous, definitely hostile. Worse. Ilari activated her wrist scanner. A small hologram flickered to life, an old mining drone, Ilarian in design but heavily modified, weaponized. Its core signature was scrambled. That's not standard protocol. It's an imprint, she said. Someone has overwritten its AI with something feral. I looked at her. Is this normal for your honeymoons? She drew her weapon, only the fun ones. We ran, the sound of treads grinding through the underbrush behind us. Trees bent and snapped. The jungle itself seemed to hold its breath. We reached the old relay chamber, metal walls covered in roots, humming faintly with dead frequencies. The central core was cracked open, and something moved inside it. Not a drone, not organic either. It had too many limbs and not enough reasons to exist. Ilari pulled me behind a console. We need to disable the relay beacon. It's drawing in everything. I thought you wanted rescue. I wanted selective rescue. We crawled through the chamber, avoiding the shifting creature. I tried not to make noise. I tried not to breathe. I tried not to remember that I was, technically, sort of, probably married to someone who called this a bonding exercise. The beacon was pulsing. I reached out, fingers shaking. Ilari covered my hand with hers. Together. We shut it down. The noise stopped. The creature froze, then it screamed again and lunged. We dove, rolled, scrambled. Ilari fired. Sparks exploded. The console ignited. I grabbed a shard of metal and stabbed. It shrieked and collapsed in a heap of wires and regret. Breathing hard, we stood over it. The relay was dead. The creature too, probably. I looked at Ilari. I want a divorce. She smiled. You need to marry me first. I hate how that makes sense. She leaned in and kissed me, just once, just enough. Next time, she said, we pick a resort. The debrief started like most things on the Valkyrie drift, with an error message, a flickering holoprojector, and a tray of food cubes that smelled vaguely of soap and despair. Commander Harkin paced at the front of the room, mumbling to himself, while the holographic map behind him spasmed between star charts and someone's vacation photo from Neptune 6. No one had figured out how to delete those. Lieutenant Rusk, the commander said, not looking up from his notes. Explain to me why a simple inspection mission resulted in 3 destroyed drones, 1 unauthorized AI shutdown, and a temporary declaration of marriage sent to 5 diplomatic outposts. I cleared my throat. We got proactive. Harkin's eye twitched. You got married. I maintain that was a misunderstanding. Ilari, seated calmly beside me, added, it was a tactical bonding maneuver. It diffused multiple cultural tensions and prevented hostilities. Harkin blinked. You married him to prevent hostilities. Yes. Did it work? So far. I leaned over and whispered, please stop helping. She smiled. The meeting dragged on, filled with reports, finger-pointing, and the occasional diplomatic note delivered by courier drone, one of which exploded in a burst of confetti labeled congratulations on your union in 6 languages. The Ilarian embassy had apparently declared us a symbol of cooperation. There were holograms of us floating above 2 major trade hubs. One of them played romantic music. I haven't even kissed you properly, I muttered. You bled next to me during an electrical fire. That counts. I was unconscious. It was a meaningful silence. After the debrief, I retreated to my quarters and buried my face in a pillow while my console lit up with notifications. Invitations to speak at cultural symposiums. A request for an interspecies cooking show featuring the newly bonded couple. A message from my mother. I didn't open that one. Not yet. Ilari showed up 20 minutes later, uninvited, carrying 2 mugs of something warm and faintly green. She handed me one. I sipped. It tasted like mint if mint had access to gravity manipulation. "We're being reassigned," she said. "Please tell me it's somewhere quiet like a black hole." "Gavrex Station, edge of the Cythurian expanse." "That doesn't sound quiet." "It's not. There's an interspecies summit we're expected to attend, as a pair." I groaned. "Are you seriously still running with the marriage story?" "It's not a story. It started as a joke. And now it's a narrative." "You're terrifying." "I'm consistent." I slumped back against the bulkhead. "Fine. But we need ground rules." "Such as?" "No more proposals without verbal clarification." "Agreed. No declarations of unity in front of weaponized ambassadors." "Reasonable." "And no using our bond to get us better seating in the mess hall." She sipped her drink. "I will not lie, Jonah, that last one will be difficult." The shuttle to Gavrex was uneventful until the second hour, when the navigation AI declared a midlife crisis and rerouted us through a nebula it described as emotionally resonant. Ilari calmly disabled its personality subroutines. I offered it a pep talk anyway. Gavrex Station appeared out of the haze like a skeletal titan, all spires and shimmering glass domes. A hub of commerce, diplomacy, and paranoia. We docked under the scrutiny of 12 security satellites, and an AI named Florn who insisted on verifying our relationship status before clearing us to land. "You may kiss to proceed," Florn said in a neutral tone. I gawked. "Are you serious?" "I am never not serious." Ilari leaned in, expression unreadable. I panicked and kissed her on the cheek. "Confirmed," Florn said, sounding faintly disappointed. The summit itself was chaos in diplomatic formalware. Representatives from 37 species, each with their own customs, tempers, and allergy profiles. We were immediately swarmed by cameras and curious delegates. A Thaskri ambassador clicked enthusiastically. "Your pairing is inspirational. Truly, unity forged in plasma and spores." "We aim to confuse," I said. Ilari added, "He means cooperate." We made our rounds. I smiled too much. Ilari smiled not at all, which somehow made people like her more. We sat through speeches, dances, one ritual involving edible sand, and a ceremony where I had to bless an egg with my marital aura. I did my best. The egg hatched. Everyone applauded. I'm still not sure if that was supposed to happen. Later, in the quiet of our guest quarters, I finally collapsed onto the overly soft alien furniture and groaned into the cushion. "Remind me," I said, "why we agreed to this." "Because it's important. To interspecies diplomacy." "To me." I sat up. "That's not fair." "Why?" "Because I don't know how to be this important to someone like you." Ilari walked over and sat beside me. "Do you think I know how to be human?" "No, but you're doing a better job of it than I am." She reached out and took my hand. "Then let us both be terrible at this, together." I didn't have a reply. Not a good one, but I didn't let go of her hand. The next morning a crisis erupted. A stolen cargo of quantum seeds, delicate, sentient plants used in terraforming, had gone missing. Security suspected sabotage. Tensions flared. Species accused each other of theft. The summit threatened to collapse. We found ourselves roped into the investigation by virtue of our symbolic unity. I suspected it was because everyone else had already blamed each other, and we were the last remaining neutral party. The trail led through maintenance shafts, hydroponic gardens, and a janitorial drone with a gambling addiction. Eventually, we discovered the seeds in a containment vault hidden beneath the central dome, guarded by raccoons. Not ordinary raccoons, space raccoons, intelligent, organized, and armed. "They've formed a small republic," Ilari whispered. "I can't believe this is my life now. They demand recognition and snack subsidies. I'm going back to the shuttle. You're the only one they'll talk to. They see you as one of their own. Because I have dark circles and make poor decisions." "Exactly." I sighed and stepped forward, hands raised. "People of the Trash Federation, we come in peace." Their leader, a rotund raccoon with an eye patch and a utility belt, chirped proudly and tossed me a nut bar. "We accept your terms," I said without reading them. Ilari handed me a document. "You just agreed to non-aggression, monthly tributes, and shared custody of the hydroponics lab." "Fantastic, anything else?" "Yes," she said. "They've requested you as their ceremonial trash prince." I stared at her. "Are you making that up? Would it matter?" I took a deep breath. "Fine, but I want a crown." She smiled, "Already printing one." And just like that, we saved the summit. Again by accident, with raccoons. Later that night, Ilari stood on the observation deck watching stars bend in the distance. I joined her holding 2 drinks. She took one. "You handled today well," she said. "Thanks. I think I was promoted by raccoons. Many would find that prestigious." "Do you?" "I find you interesting." "That's not the same." "No," she said, "it's more." I stood beside her in silence. The stars didn't answer, but they didn't need to. Neither of us said it, but I think we both knew. We were in this now, for better, worse, or interspecies trade negotiations, and possibly snacks. I woke up to wedding music. Not soft, emotional strings or gentle piano. No, this was full brass, high tempo, and suspiciously close to the Valkyrie Drift's battle alarm. I sat up, blinking at the blinking lights overhead and the message scrolling across my ceiling display. "Today is your big day. Remember to smile. Station AI Glimmer." I groaned, "What big day?" Ilari entered the room already dressed in formal diplomatic robes, which was both unfair and alarming. "You forgot." "I forget lots of things. Most of them don't involve galactic councils." She tossed me a neatly folded uniform. "Today is the Unity Accord ratification ceremony. Our symbolic union is the centerpiece." "Right." I stared at the fabric like it might explode. I was hoping the raccoons would unionize and delay everything. They already did. You slept through the strike. I got dressed in record time and followed her to the central spire of Gavrik Station. Delegates, reporters, ambassadors, and one disturbingly large floral creature named PHRRRRRRRRT lined the viewing platform. Everyone turned when we entered. A small bird-like alien offered me a bouquet of plasma-safe orchids. I took it and whispered, "I feel like I'm walking into a trap." "You are," Ilari said. "It's called commitment." We stood in front of the council. Cameras hovered. Holograms recorded every blink. The High Mediator cleared his throat. "Today, we recognize the partnership that diffused conflict, bridged worlds, and somehow negotiated peace with raccoons. In accordance with the Ilarian human diplomatic statutes, this union shall serve as the binding image of interspecies cooperation." I leaned toward Ilari. Did he just say binding? She didn't answer. A holographic minister read from a glowing scroll, names and protocols, and, I'm pretty sure, a dessert recipe. When he finally reached the end, he said, "Do you reaffirm your union before the galaxy?" Ilari said, "Yes." I said, "Is there a backup option?" The crowd laughed, so I sighed, "Yes." The applause was immediate and way too enthusiastic. I shook 17 hands, got hugged by a blob, kissed on the forehead by a robotic dignitary, and was asked to endorse a line of commemorative kitchenware featuring our faces. By the time we returned to our quarters, I had developed a low-grade diplomatic migraine. "Are we actually married now?" I asked, collapsing on the couch. "According to 17 legal systems, yes," Ilari said. "And according to us?" She looked at me for a long moment. "That depends. Do you still believe it was a joke?" I thought about it. About crashing on jungle moons, calming cuddled miners, talking down angry ambassadors, negotiating with raccoons, and surviving 5 diplomatic dinners in a row with only her at my side. "No," I said, "I don't." She leaned in and kissed me, slowly, quietly, no ceremony, just us. No cameras. Later, over drinks and toasted nutrient cakes, she said, "You've changed." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean I've become more culturally sensitive and emotionally available?" "I mean you used to scream when the vending machine spoke. Now you only flinch." "Character growth. You're learning." I considered the screen flashing updates on the Unity Accord, treaties ratified, borders softened, resource sharing initiated. All because two people had survived ridiculous missions and a misunderstanding that turned out to be something real. So what now? I asked. She stood, extended a hand. Now we keep going as partners officially. I took it. You sure you can handle that? She smiled. I've handled worse. I married you. We walked the length of the observation deck as the stars bent in the distance. Somewhere, a small raccoon government was drafting tax policies. Somewhere else, a peace agreement held because two fools refused to let go of each other. And somewhere deep in my chest, a voice, not sarcastic, not joking, finally whispered the words I hadn't dared say out loud until now. I love her. Not because I had to, because I chose to, over and over again. Even when the next mission came. Even when the universe inevitably caught fire again. Even when the coffee ran out. Especially then. And this time I'd mean it the first time I asked, "Will you marry me?" She didn't even blink, finally.